Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Before we call to order, we have a lot on the agenda today, and we're a light board today, so bear with us. I also want to give a congratulations to our trustee, Anastasia Elder, who just made the Crane's 40 under 40 list. It's awesome to have representation on that list and to have her on this board, so I wanted to begin by sending her flowers. And thank you for all you do. We'll now call this meeting to order at 9:03 a.m. Teresa, roll call.
Mayor Biassiata.
Here.
Ms. Elder.
Here.
Mayor Kumar. Mr. Love.
Here.
Sorry. Reverend Lucas. Ms. McPherson. Ms. Pachetti. Mr. Sleesman.
Here.
Mayor Weiss.
Here.
And Ms. Welch.
Here.
You have 6 board members present. You have a quorum.
Thank you so much. Can we now have item 3, certification regarding notice of meeting?
Up to the Vice Chair. I first advise that notice of this meeting has been posted more than 24 hours in advance of the meeting, that the usual notification has been given the news media and other interested persons, and that all requirements of the Ohio Revised Code and rules and bylaws of this board regarding notice of meeting have been complied with.
Thank you. We'll now move to item 4 with the approval of the October 29, 2024 board meeting minutes. Is there any comments on the board meeting minutes for October 29th?
Move approval, Mayor Weiss.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The board meeting minutes will now be approved. We'll now move into item number 5, which is the public comments. We'll start with any in-person public comments, and please be sure to state your name and the city of residence when you come up to the podium.
Chris Martin, City of Cleveland. I've noticed lately that RTA staff has been noting for you all when some subject that they are presenting on is part of your strategic plan. So I'd like to bring your attention to that strategic plan. As you should be aware, that plan identified 7 key initiatives, including addressing funding challenges. Under this initiative, the board decided that the agency ought to implement expanded funding concept with more frequent corridors and 7-day-a-week consistency. That is, this board directed the agency to make buses come more often at night and on weekends. Yet, since then, this board has done little to ensure that actually happens. The time to act is now. Meanwhile, bus rapid transit remains a subject of concern for this board. You recently saw a presentation about a planning study for a potential Broadway Avenue BRT corridor. Trustee Pachetti asked a great question after the presentation. She wondered how the planning study would increase ridership. Trustee Pachetti, RTA staff mentioned several things that are not actually promised by the planning study. For example, they mentioned traffic signal priority and dedicated bus lanes. Yet this agency right now has included neither of those in its West 25th BRT planning. What does bus rapid transit mean for this agency? This board can define that. It can say what features are required to call something bus rapid transit. And it ought to. That's all.
Thank you so much for those comments. Yes.
My name's Kevin Hinkle. I'm a longtime RTA commuter. I live in Cleveland, Ohio. And I want to come to the board with a suggestion of having a transit museum put in Tower City. It could be, the museum could consist of RTA memorabilia, RT bus stops, shelters, old maps, and even relative models. I think it'd be a wonderful idea to have a couple of people you can get a hold of that is involved. That the trustee's name is Blaine Hayes, and he's located at 806 Fernhill Road, Avenue, Parma, Ohio, 44129. He's involved with the Northern Ohio Railroad Museum there. And the second person's name is Mark Adelman. He's also the resident of Parma, Ohio, who's involved with the Transit History Authority. I think you all can get in contact. I'll be more than happy to donate a couple items for your transit museum. I think it'd be a wonderful idea if you have it where it's more accessible, especially at the Tower City location.
Thank you so much for those comments. And as supporters of arts and culture, we're definitely going to take that into consideration. Any other in-person comments? Teresa, any over the phone?
Do we have anyone on the phone in the back?
There are no callers at this time.
Okay. Any web form comments?
At this time, I do not see any web form.
Okay. Thank you so much. We will now go into item number 6, which is the introduction of the resolutions. We'll start with Resolution 2024-84.
Authorizing contract number 2024-106 with Van Scoyoc Associates Incorporated to provide federal advocacy services for a 3-year period in an amount not to exceed $327,000 and in an amount not to exceed $109,000 for each of the 2 option years for a total contract amount not to exceed $545,000. General Fund, Executive Department Budget.
Any comments? Any discussions? Can I have a motion?
So moved, Trustee Elder.
Second, Slicksman.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 2024-85.
Authorizing contract number 2024-107 with J.B. Hayden and Murphy Mole, Basil LLP, and Terrence O'Donnell of Dickinson Wright, PLLC, to provide state advocacy services in an amount not to exceed $255,000 for a 3-year period and in an amount not to exceed $85,000 for each of the 2 option years for a total 5-year contract amount not to exceed $425,000. General Fund, Executive Department Budget.
Any discussion? Do I have a motion?
Motion for roll call vote?
So we need a motion.
We have a
and
motion
second.
first.
Second.
All right. Do we have a roll call?
Sure. All right, Mayor Biassiata,
Yes.
Ms. Elder, Mr. Love,
Abstain? Abstain?
Mr. Sleesman,
Yes.
Mayor Weiss,
Yes.
and Ms. Welch.
Yes.
We have 5 ayes and 1 abstention. It fails.
That motion has failed. 2024-86.
Authorizing contract number 2024-118 with City Architecture Incorporated to provide professional planning and engineering services for the Broadway Corridor Transit-Oriented Development Plan in an amount not to exceed $484,426.59. RTA Development Fund, Programming and Planning Department Budget.
Thank you.
Move to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 2024-87.
Authorizing contract number 2024-120 with MS Consultants Incorporated for Project 19.08 Architect Engineering Services for Light Rail Retaining Wall Repair, Phase 3, Blue Line, in an amount not to exceed $359,977.20. RTA Development Fund, Engineering and Project Development Department Budget.
Do I have a motion?
Request a roll call?
Yes. Do I have a motion first?
I move to approve.
A second.
Second.
All right, now we can do a roll call. Thank you.
Mayor Biassiata,
Yes.
Ms. Elder,
Yes.
Mr. Love,
Yes.
Mr. Sleesman,
Yes.
Mayor Weiss,
Abstain?
and Ms. Welch.
Yes.
We have 5 ayes and 1 abstention. It fails.
Item 2024-88.
Authorizing the exercise of an option under contract number 2021-125 with Siemens Mobility Incorporated for the purchase and delivery of 18 high-floor light rail vehicles at the contractual base price of $5,166,336 plus an inflationary price increase calculated at the time of the final assembly based on the producer price index for transportation equipment and a labor index published monthly by the United States Department of Labor Bureau of Labor Statistics, spare parts and tooling, RTA Development Fund, Fleet Management Department budget.
Do you have any discussion on that?
Just one comment, maybe just because of the significance of the contract, and we've been doing these long, if Doc or staff could just remind us all where we are in the order of the car replacement, rail cars.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. I'm Flonse Caver, Chief Operating Officer here at RTA. So we currently have 30 cars on order. If the board so chooses to approve this resolution, this will add 18 cars, and the total cars on order will be 48.
And the maximum?
The maximum that we will purchase will be 60, and so there'll be 12 cars in the balance.
Great, thank you.
Any other discussion?
Move approval, Mayor Weiss.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This motion carries. Item 2024-89.
Authorizing contract number 2024-134 with Parts Authority, LLC, for the furnishing of bus batteries as specified and as required for a period of 2 years in an amount not to exceed $103,664. General Fund, Fleet Management Department budget.
Discussion or motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 2024-90.
Authorizing contract number 2024-160 with Motorola Solutions Incorporated for link layer authentication, access keys in an amount not to exceed $127,132.12. General Fund, Information Technology Department budget.
Discussion or motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 2024-91.
Authorizing contract number 2024-170 with S&A Systems Incorporated to provide Fleet Watch hosted software maintenance and support for a period of 3 years in an amount not to exceed $113,910.42. General Fund, Information Technology Department budget.
Discussion or motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 2024-92.
Authorizing a lease agreement with Barron's Bus Incorporated for property at the Brook Park Rapid Transit Station located at 17510 Brook Park Road, Brook Park, Ohio, 44135 for a term of 10 years with 2 5-year renewal options.
Do I have a motion?
So moved, Mayor Weiss.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 2024-93.
Authorizing the Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority to enter into a settlement agreement with Gearing Property Company, LLC, to resolve a dispute over land ownership near the West 25th Ohio City Station.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second, Trustee Elder.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This motion carries. That will be the conclusion of the resolutions for today.
To the chair,
Yes.
my apologies. There were a few web form comments
Sure.
that came in,
Yes,
if I may.
absolutely.
We have a comment from Denise Clinton Alex of Cleveland. She did not leave a comment, so.
Okay.
And then the second one is from Isaac Shimsky Augusta of Cleveland. As RTA continues with the rail car replacement program, I hope that they will use this as an opportunity to install the equipment necessary to scan tickets at all the doors and on the blue and green lines. The current system of making everyone get it on and off, depending on the direction, use the same door by the driver, significantly slows down the process at busy stops. This is even worse at East 34th and East 55th, where people need to walk to the front and then double back to sit down or get off. The recent free day on November the 5th showed how much faster and easier each stop could be if people could use any door in each direction. The same observations would also apply to the health line. End of comment.
Thank you for those comments. We'll now move into item 7, the Board Governance Committee reports. Does anybody have anything to report today? I do want to mention that there is a Civilian Oversight Committee meeting tonight, 5 p.m. So we do have that happening. Anybody else? Nope. Okay. We'll now move into the introduction of new employees and announcement of promotions, item number 15. Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Board Chair Welsh, India Birdsong Terry, General Manager, and also Board of Trustees. My name is Ida Ford Marshall, here to announce the new hires and promotions. Of course, we're going to start out with the heartbeat of our organization. That's our operators. We're starting with Drina Thompson, Sharita Jeffries, Nasir Jackson, William Rivers, Armand McGee, Erica Harrison, Clarence Steplight, Philip Oden, and Anna Putney. Continuing on is Olivia Tyson, Shanatica Simmons, Angel Melendez, DeAndre Christian, Shanice Small, Sharda Brown, Aaron Phillips, Jamar Williams. Moving into operations, James Burke as vehicle engineer. Laborers, Desmond Lee, Tatiana Turner, laborer, Tyler Andrus, laborer. And our transit ambassador of transit police is John Tittle. And at the main office, we now welcome Brandon Malone as payroll clerk. Moving onward and upward, our promotions. Give a shout out to Joseph Fleming, the new maintenance technician, Charles Spivey, service quality coordinator, Richard Williams, assistant supervisor in equipment, Jose Rosado, equipment maintainer, and rounding it off with Stephen Walderick as the new equipment repair leader. Let's give them all a round of applause. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Thank you for all your hard work, and thank you to #OneRTA. It's always great to see RTA growing.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. We will now move into item 16, the Secretary Treasurer's report.
Ms. Welch, good morning, members of the board, those online. This is Raj Gautam. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the GCRTA. We'll start off by looking at the economic conditions as we always do, and these are obviously the factors that impact our business the most. As we recall, from a high of 9.1%, the rate of inflation has decreased to 2.4% as of the end of October 2024. The FOMC reduced the interest rates to 4.75% following a 0.25 reduction at their November 7th meeting. They are scheduled to meet again on December 17th and 18th to determine any additional actions that may be needed. Ridership through October, it was up 12.3% above 2023 levels. On a year-to-date basis, compared to 2023, it's 11.4% higher. On the right-hand side, when we compare the ridership to pre-COVID levels of 27.1 million rides, we currently stand at 20.8. That is still 6.3 million rides lower, or 23.24%. Just a quick update. As we all remember, we had received a grant of $105,000 from the Cleveland Foundation to provide free fair election day ridership. Just a quick update on the ridership increases that we experienced. The election day ridership of 90,770 exceeded that of a typical fall 2024 Tuesday by 6.2%, and you see the increases by each of the modes. When you compare the election day ridership to that of the election day 2023, there was a 27.8% increase. And once again, the increases by mode are indicated on the slide. Rail up 7.8%, bus 32.2%, paratransit 14.2%. Passenger fares, when compared to October 2023, were 35.2% higher, 43.2% above September 2024. And on a year-to-date basis, we are 20.1% higher when compared to 2023 levels. Comparison to pre-COVID levels of 32.4 million in 2019, that was the pre-pandemic amount. We stand at $27.5 million, still a decline of about 4.9 million or 15.1%. We have not yet received the November sales tax numbers, so these numbers have previously been shared with you at the previous board meeting. These numbers are October receipts that were based on July 2024 activity. We remain stable as far as sales tax is concerned. On a year-to-date basis, we are 0.6% higher when compared to last year. Selected data, total outstanding long-term debt as of the last principal payment and at the end of the year, or 12/31/2023, amounted to 30.3 million. We do have a debt service payment coming due within the next few weeks. Principal due in December 2024 is estimated around 8 million. The total debt service, which includes the interest, the payment will be 8.7 million. The current balance in the bond retirement fund is 8.7 million, so no further transfers will be needed from the general fund. Total cash and investments as of the end of October amounted to 371.6 million, of which 342.3 are in restricted funds, leaving 29.3 in unrestricted or the general fund cash and investments. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Raj, one question on the fares. Can you go back to the chart? The 2022 is the light blue line in the middle for October, if I'm looking at that correctly. Just wondering if there was something that triggered.
You're looking at the increase in October?
Yes.
That was a timing difference that we had largely due to payments from CMSD. They had fallen behind a couple months and we made up the payment. That's why you see the spike.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just want to say thank you for the ridership numbers for Election Day. I would like to thank the Cleveland Foundation again and Cleveland Votes and RTA for prioritizing the ridership. I think that significantly contributed to voter turnout, and I hope this is something that we continue to do year after year because it's so important, and I want to thank everybody for their work on that. Are there any additional questions or comments? Thank you so much, Raj, for that report today.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move into item number 17, General Manager's Report. Our illustrious GM, Bersong Terry.
Here we go. All right. Good morning, everybody. Have quite a few things to discuss this morning, and we will be going over some of the traction information as well a little later on in the presentation. But I will start out with good news. So as we start to be able to look at the funding on the horizon for some of our replacement for our fleet, We wanted to celebrate and advise you of a recent awarding of $4.2 million through the governor's office in Columbus. So we are to receive $4.2 million in funds as a part of the Ohio Department of Transportation, otherwise known as ODOT, Urban Transportation Program. So those funds are announced by our governor, Mike DeWine, and we are excited to say that those will be used, those proceeds will be used to purchase 6 new 40-foot compressed natural gas buses. So that's our CNG fleet that we're trying to make sure that we keep tip-top shape and also make sure that all of our vehicles are ready to hit the road. So we appreciate the support by our state partners and look forward to utilizing those funds at the next purchase. Also, we like to be able to make sure that our appointing authorities are aware of everything that we have going on. It is my pleasure to be able to present alongside a few other folks, depending on the subject matter, at these opportunities. So the Cuyahoga County Mayors and Managers meeting was held on Halloween at Magnet in Cleveland. The photo that you see there is myself giving a presentation on kind of a truncated version of the state of RTA. It's a highlight of some of the projects that we have going on so that our Mayors and Managers Association is aware of what is happening here. So we talked about things like TOD or TOC, depending on who you're talking to. It could be communities or development. But making sure that we also talk about our financial state, our state of good repair programs, also our 50th anniversary. As you probably are aware, we are celebrating 50 years of service. So congratulations to RTA again. Just as information, this audience at this mayors and managers meeting is usually about 40 or so mayors. These are the city mayors that comprise of Cuyahoga County. So a lot of this is really to talk about service as well and some of the municipal governance items that are going on in our region. So it was a great opportunity to talk. We also learned about some of the developmental projects that are coming up in their particular areas and how potentially RTA can connect their constituents to those resources. Also wanted to give an update of some of the external work that's being done outside of Ohio. You may have recalled this from last year. Railway Age, also known as the Women in Rail Conference, was held in Chicago this year, November 5th and 6th. We had a couple of folks in our Power and Way team that were recognized. So we do have Cindy and Teresa. They are part of our powerful women cohort, so to speak, in Power and Way. Teresa is our director, and Cindy is one of our supervisors on the rail side. Cindy was able to get the recognition in leadership for this year for the Railway Age Women in Rail Conference. Teresa got it last year, so they were able to support each other there. I also served on a panel in Chicago for the conference to be able to talk about mentorship and the importance of making sure that we have a diversified team, as well as making sure that we have resources available in-house to continue in that effort. So some of the things we talked about, of course, is our Positive Impact Program. You've heard about that mentorship effort that is kind of taken on like gangbusters, and then also some of the ERGs that we have along the way. So great opportunity. We appreciate the exposure, and congratulations to Cindy and Teresa. Speaking of mentees, we had a graduation at the Hayden District for 11 former mentees, honoring them in their service through the program, and 117 new operators that have formally graduated from the Positive Impact Program. So great, spirited group, super excited about making sure that we continue the progress. If you are not aware, it is a rarity to have this kind of program in a transit authority like ours. I will go into a little bit of information at a next slide in some of the conferences that our staff has been at recently. And I ask this all the time to make sure that my numbers are accurate. And there's probably only about 10 properties across the country that have a positive impact program or version of the mentorship program like ours that has been that successful in retaining employees, making sure that folks are attending their shifts as needed, and then also have really an outlet to be able to work through issues that come up that all of us have in daily life to make sure that we can keep good quality employees happy and healthy and safe coming to work. So for that, we are in the top 10 of the nation right now, leading the charge to be able to work on workforce development. So great job. All right, another boon to our financial state, we were awarded $800,000 for public workforce transportation projects. As you note, this one also is through the governor's office in Columbus. This is the Ohio Workforce Mobility Partnership Program. We have very lengthy names here for our programs in transportation, but you'll notice that that $800,000 is kind of mentioned in two different chunks. One is for the microtransit feasibility study. This, as you may recall, were projects that we had in Solon. We had Aerozone currently, and we're working with Share Mobility in Columbus to tweak that program to make sure that we can make it as successful as we can for different communities. So this microtransit feasibility study was afforded $300,000 to work toward new pilots for that microtransit as we continue to work through the process and get new interested parties along with us in the process. The other $500,000 was for the bus stop enhancement program, and this was for the expansion of high boarding bus stop infrastructure in job-dense areas. So this is meant to improve the transit waiting experience for our customers and also make sure that we can improve the infrastructure while they wait for the bus. So congratulations to the team. Great application, which proved to have great results. Also wanted to recognize those that are military personnel here in the audience, and of course at the RTA family. We appreciate your service. We had the recognition of RTA veterans. We had the Week of Honor. If you can recall, November 11th was Veterans Day, and so we also celebrated here at RTA. We have a plethora of things that we did, including being out at the parade, making sure that we have a special challenge coin. I always call it a flip coin because on both sides you can see an amazing tribute and testament to our military service personnel. We appreciate your service again. This coin is very similar to the 50th anniversary coin that we have. It's bronze in color. This one has a little bit more pop and color to it, and we definitely appreciate our veterans, so we did distribute that among the RTA personnel. If you did not get one, please let us know. Our marketing department wanted to make sure that everyone got it that did serve. We also wanted to make sure that you were aware of several of the trainings that we have going on. The latest training coming out of our DEI and OEO, again, a lot of acronyms, but our diversification of workforce is really the point here. We had presenters from Plexus, LGBT, and Allied Chamber of Commerce to really talk about transitioning in the workplace. So we had nearly 50 attendees from the management side of the house and operations to be able to talk about folks that may be transitioning in the transgender and non-binary community. We want to make sure that this is and continues to be a place of respect, mutual appreciation, and equality. As I always say, we want to make sure that you came into work the same way that you left, happy and healthy and ready for the next day. And there's a lot of things that go into that as we start to re-educate ourselves on gender diversity and navigating the workplace. So great effort. It went really well. We had great external trainers that really were able to explain the process. And again, it's a working process. It's a continuance of education, but we appreciate all walks of life here at RTA and want to make sure that we have that reflected in our training as well. All right, back to the conversation I mentioned before about the mentorship programs. It is connected to this particular slide because on, again, same week, November 11th through 13th, myself as well as about 5 or 6 other members of our team, including union leadership, headed to Baltimore, Maryland, where we were at the Making Connections Conference. It is a conference that is geared toward the union staffers and members of the transit industry to be able to talk about health and safety, workforce retention programs, upskilling individuals, and also equity and inclusion in the workplace. So we're right on task with all of the trainings that we have going on. And also, we are in the middle of contract negotiations as well. So hopefully we'll have a good response for you coming up soon in that regard as well. We really were right hand in hand with a lot of our transit partners. There was probably about 400 people at that conference from all across the nation, different union leaderships to be able to talk about how to increase our product that we call transportation. I did sit on a panel alongside our deputy administrator who serves as the administrator for the FTA, Veronica Vanterpool. great opportunity to talk about what we're doing here in Cleveland and be able to really push for the support of our ATU, our Amalgamated Transit Union, and also the TWU, which we don't have here, but is a very strong union across the country, was also on the panel alongside me, as well as the LA Metro CEO Stephanie Wiggins. Great panel. We also had presentations by Wendy Talley, George Fields, Ida Ford Marshall, Darnell Morris, and Nick Bigger. If I forgot anybody, I apologize, to be doing presentations on some of the programs we have as well. So great job, team. All right, so now we get into the fun stuff. There is a seat replacement project going on. If you recall through the traction information that we come to you every quarter with our lovely friends from TransPro and of course the internal team, we start to talk about what is important to you as the customer. Part of that, no surprise, is the cleanliness of the fleet. Part of this, a big problem that we usually see in any transit authority, it usually comes down to the seating and the floors. Those are the part of the vehicles that get the most use. So they get the most abuse as well. Part of this that we're working forward with in waiting for our new rail cars is also beautifying the ones that we do have. It will take a few years to be able to get to that replacement point for all of our fleet. So a big project that we have in play, and I want to be able to say congratulations to Sean Thompson, who is the rail director out at our rail yard, to be able to push this forward under the direction of Flance Caver and operations and really get this moving, along with fleet engineering, rail equipment, procurement, and of course, supply chain management. We are replacing and have replaced all of our seating. We're working toward that 100% goal. You can see the before and the after, the cloth versus the vinyl. This is a huge boon to our cleanliness program, and we wanted to make sure that you got a little bit of a bird's eye view. We're trying to show you instead of tell you. If somebody's grandmother, as long as mine, would say, hey, I can show you better than I can tell you, well, this is it personified. So take a couple minutes and enjoy the video.
This project is driven by you, the rider. The customers identified that vehicle cleanliness was one of their most important factors of riding rapid. Seats became one of our primary focus and surveys. The process is we get the new seats in, our body shop preps the seat backs, so they have to actually take the seat backs apart, take the old foam out, the wood, wrap the old backs. They do this before they bring the car in. Then once they bring the car in, they ended up stripping the entire seats, all the seat backs and seat bottoms. And then our vehicle servicer group comes in and they clean out everything. They do a deep clean underneath the seats to make sure everything's ready for the install. And then it goes back to our body shop, and our body shop reinstalls the seat bottoms and the seat backs. We had to work around the increased service, and we had to work around our own maintenance practice to make sure that we can get the project.
All right, so congratulations to the team on that. So hopefully this is helpful. I'm seeing a couple nods. That we can continue to show you and be able to kind of bring you into the shop as we have some of these projects going on. Thank you very much to Natoya and the marketing team. I'm not sure, I don't think I see Sharon, but I know the marketing team, digital media group, they're like a tag team, has been working really around the clock to make sure that we can start to bring this digital content to you. Did you have a question?
Just a quick question. Total number of seats? I'm just...
Total number of seats. We had that question asked. Melinda, is somewhere around 2,000, if I'm not mistaken, left and right cushions?
Yeah, 2,592 seats.
There you go.
Included the half the left side and half the right side. So yeah, total of over 2,000 seats.
So I asked that question as well, so thank you. We appreciate that. So big effort by our team to make sure that we can have a cleaner system, especially over the next few years as we start to wait and get a little antsy for those new rail cars. We also want to shine up the ones that we have. All right. Any additional questions from the panel? the panel.
No, I'll add that when Dr. Walker Minor's team put out the "we have a special announcement," there were so many comments that were like, "Please replace the seats." So we're listening and we're heading in the right direction, and it's great to see that. So I'm very happy about the
Absolutely.
seats.
It's a personal pet peeve of mine, I will say, to have cloth seats. So that was one of the first questions that I asked Doc when I came here, and I said, well, how old are our seats and when can we replace them? So I really am excited about this opportunity for sure.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. We will just move ahead to, Skip has the president's report. Any old business? Any new business? We do have Trustee Sleesman and Trustee Love headed to a conference. Is there any notes that you'd like to impart around what you've learned so far, what you're expecting at the conference that you'd like to share?
It's the Ohio Needs Transit Conference that APTA has down in Columbus every year. And yes, I was there yesterday. I came back up for this, and I'm going right back down after this. But the meat of the conference started this morning, so not much to share just yet.
Okay, great. No, go ahead.
Just to add one thing, and I'm not sure, Trustee Love, you haven't been there yet. You're on your way. Okay. Just wanted to mention at the pleasure of the chair or vice chair, thank you to the board for your flexibility, especially with the back and forth driving. We appreciate that. It's even more important and necessary to make sure that you guys are here, you ladies and gentlemen are here. So we appreciate the effort. I wanted to make sure, and Teresa, if you could just from my recollection, recite the two resolutions that failed. My assumption is due to attendance. Again, this is another example of why your presence is so important and life does happen. I want to make sure that once you do remind me of those two, that we put a plan together to make sure that we can bring those back in front of the board at whatever appropriate time, because some of that work is time sensitive. From my recollection, I think one is under Natoya's area and one might be under Mike's, if I'm not mistaken. So, Teresa.
Resolution 2024-85, that's the state advocacy services. And then 224-87 for the retaining wall, light rail retaining wall with MS Consultants.
Okay, so I will make sure that I kind of circle back with the team internally. Janet, I'm kind of looking at you for general counsel guidance on this one as we go back, and also the two deputies that these projects fall under. Just as information, I did mention it a little bit in my presentation. We are in the middle of negotiations with the union as well, so we might be able to come back through a special meeting if appropriate. We'll determine what time frame that presents, so we might have an opportunity to bring it back before, I think it's the 17th, when we have the actual full board meeting where these two would go through. I also want to be able to say thank you to the board members for staying true to your North Star. If you got to abstain, you got to abstain. So we will make sure that we get this back to you. In my mind, the two options that I think we have are either having a special meeting between now and the 17th. As I mentioned, we may have a couple other items on that agenda, or either bringing it to the December board, but I don't know how that impacts the timeline and the contracts that are available. So I just wanted to put that on the record. Janet, I don't know if you had any additional, or Mike or Natoya.
We're already on it, ma'am.
Good answer. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, and I'm seeing the nods by both Natoya and Mike, so I think we can make it work.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much for that. We'll be moving into committee meetings, but before we do and adjourn the board meeting, we just want to let you know that our next meeting is scheduled for December 17th, 2024, here in person. Do I have a motion to adjourn the board meeting?
So moved, Mayor Weiss.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We will now adjourn the board meeting at 9:46. Also at 9:46, we will open up the Operational Planning and Infrastructure Committee meeting.
Ms. Welch,
Here.
Mr. Love,
Yes.
and Mr. Sleesman.
Yeah.
We have 3 committee members present. You have a quorum.
Thank you so much. We actually have 2 items on the agenda today. We have the 2025 service plan and the 2025 budget that will lead into a public hearing. First up, we have the 2025 service plan, which is a discussion about that service plan. And we have presenter Jeff Macko, Manager of Service Planning. You now have the floor, Jeff. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Welch, members of the committee, members of the board, and CEO Birdsong. As Chair Welch mentioned, my name is Jeffrey Macko. I'm the Manager of Service Planning. Today I'll be presenting on the 2025 Service Management Plan. It's also referenced as SMP in the document, so if you see that acronym, that's what it stands for. The 2025 Service Management Plan is aligned with the recommended 2025 budget, which provides for 2024 year-end service levels to be continued through 2025. As required by the board policy, the SMP reports the current bus route performance and outlines plans for the coming year. So on the next few slides, you'll see what we're planning to do for 2025. Many of them are continuations of what we've been working on in 2024. So if the presentation looks a little bit similar to what you saw last year, that's why, because we're continuing our initiatives. So we're going to continue to improve bus stop safety and deployment of the informational bus stop signs. We'll also seek to continue improving transit waiting environments with concrete landing pads and amenities to benefit all riders of the system, especially those mobility impaired riders. Through the shelter policy that was updated a couple of years back, we're going to continue to seek to add shelters throughout our service area per that policy, and also continue the Community Partner Investment Program in partnership with our Program and Planning Department. We'll continue to develop lists of potential frequency improvements as to be implemented as our budget permits. It should be noted over the second half of 2024, we have been working to increase frequency on routes. So on weekdays, there's been 6 routes that we've either already increased or plan to increase in December. And on weekends, there's been 4 routes that we've either already increased or will increase frequency on weekends. We'll continue to monitor system performance and to respond to building, road, bridge construction projects that impact bus routes. As every year, we go through and have temporary rail shutdowns, so we'll continue to provide service when we have those projects, and also when there's major special events such as concerts or events. We'll continue to tweak our schedules to have a focus on service reliability. And it's important to note that this plan does not call for an increase in the budgeted hours and miles. In your packet, you have the document, which also has some tables, that is called the bus route performance. So we look at our 41 bus routes that we run, and then we put them in categories, and there's 10 that perform in the lowest quartile of their route category. Following what we learned in the system redesign study back in 2019, whenever you have a network that reflects the community values, there will be routes that just have lower productivity. It's just as you're deploying service as the community wants, lower productivity sometimes on certain routes are expected. But it is important to note that system ridership and productivity has improved from 2023 to 2024. So with that, I'm available for any questions.
Thank you for that presentation. Any questions from the committee?
Yes. A few questions, Trustee Elder. You had mentioned that some routes have already been increased, and then there are others that will be. Do you know which routes have already been increased?
Yes. So with the August service change, it was all weekday improvements. So it was on the 16, the 50, the 71, and the 86.
Okay.
So those were taking either all or portions of the route from hourly service to half-hourly service.
Okay, and then thank you for that. And then secondly, can you go back maybe a slide where we were talking about the low productivity and this one. Can you go into a little bit more detail about what caused that lower productivity on those particular routes, what that's due to?
Did you have a specific route or just in general?
Just generally, yeah.
So some of the routes on here are particularly like a radio route, which is something that serves let's say, a suburban community coming into downtown Cleveland. With the hybrid work schedule, some of that AM peak service and PM peak service is not as it used to be. And then just land use on routes. So, you'll see like on the radio routes, like the 77, there's jobs at the end of the route, but when you're traveling to those jobs at the end of the route, there's not a lot of people getting on and off. So you're driving a lot of distance and hours, but you're not picking up and churning people on and off. But we recognize that those routes are still very valuable because it's a lifeline to get to that job down in the Brecksville area. So each one that falls in the category has a different kind of reason why it's in the category, but generally it's land use and just the length of the route.
Okay, so those 10 are primarily in the suburban areas then?
Essentially, most routes that are on here, especially in the radio category, serve parts of Cleveland and suburbs, but it's generally just the land use within the area that it's served.
Understood.
Yeah, so I can explain, there's 3 tables that are included in your report. So if you look on page 3 of the report, which is the section 3 bus route performance summary, there's essentially 4 bullet points on the second half that describe our types of routes that we have. So radial, which, as I was describing, serves downtown Cleveland, but also the suburban areas and inner city of Cleveland. Crosstown feeder routes are routes that don't ever come downtown. So think like West 117th Street or East 55th or East 79th. Those are the routes that don't actually come downtown, but they feed into the system. Park and ride, we only have the one park and ride, which is the 251. And then the last one is the downtown trolley, which we just have the B line right now.
Okay. Thank you for detailing that for me. Thanks.
Yep.
Is there a plan to run the health line with more frequency, or is this we're continuing as is?
Yeah, not this year.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is it seems to be there are 6 routes that have more hours, yet the health line dwarfs them all in ridership. And I know it used to run every 8 minutes. I used to take it every day when it ran 8 minutes. And University Circle and downtown Cleveland are still the 2 biggest job hubs in the region, not just the county, but the region. And actually, University Circle was the only one to grow over the pandemic years with hybrid and office layoffs and whatnot. So if there's not a plan to increase it now, it might be worthwhile looking at that sooner rather than later.
Yeah, my answer only addresses the budget year 2025. The board will be soon, I think, addressing a resolution to purchase some additional 60-foot buses that will be equipped to serve the health line. So, we're all hopeful that in the long term, after we address some of these hourly services that need to be half-hourly just so that it's not so inconvenient to ride, but if we continue to be successful financially and ridership-wise, I would imagine that there will be some increase in the health line frequency in the long run. For the reasons that you stated, University Circle is indeed a very, very strong trip generator.
Additional questions, comments?
Yes. Thank you for the presentation this morning. Just a couple of questions. I think the first, could you speak a little bit more about the plan for the transit waiting environment enhancements? I mean, there's a prioritization, I understand, on the high frequency routes. Could you speak to that? But then also you mentioned, for the non-shelter environments, putting concrete pads. Is there prioritization based on current paratransit usage, or how is that going to all be data informed, both the existing high frequency and then non-shelter waiting environments?
Yeah, so over the last 2 years, we've shifted our focus to, or I guess our approach to how we deploy shelters and prioritize places to improve amenities. Prior to the update of the service policy, where we actually lowered the requirement for the number of boardings that meets the requirement to have a shelter, we really took a reactive approach. When riders put in a request for a shelter, we would then go and pull the data and look at it. Whereas now we're actually monitoring it every month. So instead of taking that reactive approach, we're taking the proactive approach, where someone may never request a shelter, but we find that that shelter is actually warranted under the service policy. So we then deploy our resources to try to get that amenity installed. There's a whole process to get it installed, going through like city processes and permits and things. So, it does take a little bit of time. In regards to places where a shelter isn't warranted, one of the things that we'd like to focus on is people getting off the bus. So when you are getting off the bus, you're not required to use the front door. So you want to have something that would accommodate both the front and rear door. So we haven't really dove into that yet. We really wanted to clear out the list of shelters that met the criteria under the policy. So over the last year, we've been working to do that. And now kind of the focus that we'd like to do is improving that experience of getting off the bus. So trying to get a larger pad so that people that can on the front door, but also get off the front and rear door on a hard landing surface rather than stepping into a puddle of mud if it just rained. So that's I think if that answers your question, there's kind of two different types of stops. We are only looking at the big bus network. We don't look at paratransit. Not to say that in the future maybe that's not a good thing to consider, but right now our focus is improving that rider experience for fixed route big bus service.
Thank you for that clarification. And then I think the last question I had was just the prioritization of frequency improvements. Just again, how is that going to be determined in 2025, implemented in 2025 at some point in the year, and then without an increase of budgeted hours or miles?
So what we do is we look at the demographics of the bus route. So we're using census data, but we also are using survey data that Mary Beth's group collected through the onboard survey, because one of the things that census data doesn't tell you is whose bottom is in the seat. So you could be driving through a very well-off community, but the riders in that bus that's going to the community aren't really captured in that census data. So using the data that we've collected through the onboard survey, we were able to look at the demographics of folks riding. So we didn't really have that up until the completion of the onboard survey. So kudos to Mary Beth's group for collecting that. And then we also look at current productivity. One of the ideas is we'd like to have stuff that's running every 15 minutes or every 30 minutes on a weekday to also reflect that on the weekend, just because we recognize that it's a 7-day economy, and folks should have that convenience 7 days a week, because someone may work Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So recognizing that it's not the typical 5 Monday through Friday work week anymore. So those are a couple of the ways we think about how do we want to target increasing frequency. But really, as Joel said, one of the things that we really would like to do is these hourly bus routes. It's the way I always explain it is, think of your garage. If you own a car and you want to leave your house and your garage door only opens once an hour, that's what it's like to ride an hourly bus route. It's really very, very challenging to you basically plan your life around the timetable. So those are some of the priorities that we set for frequency improvements. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for prioritizing those items.
To the chair, if I could add.
Yes.
This is Fonse Caver, Chief Operating Officer. If I could add and provide some context to the history and the system redesign. And so when we asked the community what it would like, the community wanted a mix of both coverage routes and frequency routes. And the outcome of the system redesign created a network of core frequency routes, and we consider a frequent route a route that's 15 minutes. And so we have this core system. The next step was that we wanted to prioritize the low-density routes, the coverage routes as a description, and bring those that were hourly into the half-hourly space. And so as we're looking and navigating, we have a pretty good core route. These are the 15-minute routes. But in those areas where a person is in a low-density suburban area, we want to increase those so that it's more frequent. The visual that you could have that Jeff is describing is a person, let's just say there's a job center on the edge of the city, in an edge city. You can have frequent routes inside of the city, but if the connection is only hourly, then that trip to that job generator becomes more difficult. And so it may become a barrier to me making that job, just because I can get 15 minutes to some place, let's just call it Warrensville and Van Aken, but I can't get out to Solon because that bus only comes every hour. And so the more frequent we can make some of those outlying routes that are serving job centers, the more frequent, the better we can make the service. And so if we think of average trip length from a position, and so we had a map that would say if I lived in the Camps-Purtis area, how long would it take me to get here? That's not a linear component. It's dependent upon the frequency of the outlying services. And so what we're trying to do is to make it so that a person can decrease the amount of time that they're in a bus and have access to those amenities, particularly at the edge cities. And we understand that quality of life is increased when you're spending less time traveling. And so, as we're navigating, and it's a whole lot of items, but one of the benefits of what the team is doing is trying to increase frequency in the low-density suburban areas that are job connectors.
Thank you for that. I always love a breakdown.
In regular people's words.
Yes, in layman's terms, yes. Any additional questions, comments? Thank you, Jeff, for that presentation today.
Thank you.
We will now move into the 2025 budget discussion. And today we have presenter Kay Satula, Director of Office of Management and Budget. You now have the floor.
Good morning, Chair Welsh, members of the committee, and members of the board. My name is Kay Satula. I'm the Director of the Office of Management and Budget. And today I will be presenting an overview of the 2025 budget. In May, we presented the 2025 Capital Improvement Plan, which was adopted by the board. We submit this earlier in the year in order to provide our capital needs to ODOT, NOACA, and FTA in time for their 2025 fiscal years. In July, we presented the 2025 tax budget, which was adopted by the board on July 30th. This provides a revenue estimate for that next fiscal year. In August, we began the budget development, and today we are presenting the proposed 2025 budget, which includes the operating budget and transfers to other funds. A public hearing will also be held today. A second presentation and public hearing will be held on December 3rd. And at that time, we will recommend that the committee present the proposed 2025 budget to the board for adoption on December 17th. The Federal Open Market Committee, or FOMC, is projecting core inflation to continue falling in 2025. Supply chain disruptions are expected to diminish, and the FOMC has reacted with reducing interest rates to 5% in September and to 4.75% in November. We continue to monitor their progress throughout the year. The Federal Reserve Bank and Moody's Analytics expect interest rates to remain between 3.5% and 5% in 2025. Federal Open Market Committee states that the current increases in interest rates have helped to stabilize prices as market conditions improve. And currently, the authority has received an average yield of 4.47% on its investments on a year-to-date basis. Ridership and passenger fare revenue are projected to increase at modest rates in 2025. Ridership and passenger fares have increased every year, and through October 2024, ridership is 11.4% higher than 2023 levels. We are projecting passenger fares to increase over 4% in 2025. In 2024, sales tax receipts were stable when compared to 2023 levels. Sales tax through October is 0.6% above 2023 levels. We are budgeting a 1.5% increase in 2025. Wage increases, which are largely contractual, are budgeted around 3% for 2025. The revenue for the 2025 budget totals $364.5 million. The three largest categories are sales and use tax, passenger fares, and reimbursed expenditures, which includes PM reimbursement and other reimbursements. We are budgeting transfers of $55 million from the reserve fund to the general fund for the 27th payout for hourly employees of $4.5 million, and from the revenue stabilization fund of $50.5 million to remain in compliance with the board policy of maintaining a 1-month operating reserve. These transfers represent 15.1% of the total budgeted revenues. Operating revenues are budgeted at $35.5 million, which includes passenger fares and advertising and investment income. For 26 and 27, operating revenues are planned at $36.9 million and $38 million, respectively. Non-operating revenues are budgeted at $329 million, of which the largest is our sales and use tax at $267.5 million. Others include reimbursed expenditures, other revenue, and transfers from the reserve fund. For 26 and 27, non-operating revenues are planned at $325.8 million and $326 million, respectively. Total revenues for 2025 are budgeted at $364.5 million. For 26 and 27, revenues are planned at $362.7 million and $364 million, respectively. On the expenditure side, total expenditures for 2025 are budgeted at $364.9 million. This includes the operating budget at $323.8 million and transfers to the other funds at $41.1 million. The three largest categories are salaries and overtime at $181.6 million, representing 49.8% of the budget. Payroll taxes and fringes are 18.1% of the budget, and services, materials, and supplies are 7% of the budget. For 2025, we have 2,423 full-time equivalent or FTE positions. This is maintaining the current level of positions. The largest division is operations with 2,130 FTEs, or 87.9% of the budgeted FTEs. This includes operators, mechanics, maintenance and janitorial personnel, paratransit and service-related personnel such as dispatchers, ICC, and Transit Police. The remaining divisions are administrative in nature, and the top 3 administrative divisions are Finance at 4.3%, Human Resources at 2.7%, and Legal Affairs at 1.7%. Salaries and overtime are budgeted at $181.6 million. Payroll taxes and fringes are budgeted at $66.2 million. Total payroll is approximately 67.9% of the general fund expenditures. The Energy and Price Risk Management Program has continued to stabilize costs of fuel, specifically diesel and CNG, and the authority's diesel fuel usage is decreasing and compressed natural gas usage is increasing as we add more CNG buses to the fleet. The main drivers of the services and materials category are services and maintenance contracts, equipment, and other supplies. This category is projected at $25.5 million, or 7% of all expenditures. Most of this category consists of contractual agreements, technology hardware, and software upgrades. Paratransit purchase transportation is budgeted at $16.7 million. New contracts were negotiated in 2023, and the demand for paratransit services continues to increase. Transfers to other funds are budgeted at $41.1 million. These transfers are for specific set-asides for the bond retirement, insurance, supplemental pension, capital improvement, and reserve funds. They are to support the expected expenses and maintain the recommended ending balances. Total expenditures for the proposed 2025 budget is $364.9 million. With total revenues of $364.5 million over total expenditures of $364.9 million, a projected beginning balance of $27.5 million has a projected ending balance of $27.1 million. This is leaving a budgeted 1-month reserve for the board policy. For 26 and 27, with projecting ending balances of $29.9 million and $31.5 million respectively, each planned year has a 1-month ending reserve in compliance with board policy. The fiscal year 2025 capital improvement plan was approved by the Board of Trustees on May 20th, 2024. This is presented early to align with the fiscal years for NOACA, Ohio, and FTA. The capital improvement plan provides the purchase, maintenance, and improvement of the authority's capital assets through a programmed allocation of available financial resources. As a reminder, another presentation on the budget will occur on December 3rd with another public hearing. The resolution for the 2025 budget will be submitted in December, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have before the public hearing.
Thank you so much. Questions? Yeah, Mayor Wise.
Couple questions. One, the policy of a 1-month reserve, I'm just curious, how long has that been in place, and how do we compare to other agencies on that metric?
So our policy is set by our Board of Trustees, and that's been in place since 1974. Other agencies, some have a 1-month, others have a 2-month, and I've known one agency that has a 3-month. So it just depends on the agency and what their policy is.
Okay. The other question, and maybe for Kay, maybe for Raj. We always talk about the stabilization fund, the revenue stabilization fund. I thought there was a chart in the budget that dealt with that.
It's on page 17.
17?
And we are projecting to use 30 million of the Revenue Stabilization Fund in 2024 and 50.5 million in 2025. If we use all of that, that will be determined throughout the year how much of that will be used. But if we do use all of that, that will leave us with $77.6 million in the reserve fund. That's what I did. Oh, on the very bottom of the chart, it has the rolling balances, and the last one is the Revenue Stabilization Fund of $77.6 million.
So projecting a balance of 23.5 million in fiscal year 2027?
39 million in 2027 with an ending balance. Again, if we use all of that, that will be determined throughout the year. But right now, the plan is to use the ending balance for rolling reserve at the end of 2026 is 43.7, and ending in 2027 is 23.5.
Okay, thank you.
Quick question. Raj, did you want to, thank you, Kay. Did you want to speak to the history of or either of you, of the utilization of the stabilization fund and what our projection might mean?
Yes, I would, India. For those online, this is Raj Gautam, the CFO for GCRTA, members of the board. I think in some shape and form we have addressed this in other meetings. So back in 2021, when we had first established the Budget Stabilization Fund and put a plan together to pay off the debt, etc., we had intended for the Budget Stabilization Fund to tide things over through the end of 2028 timeframe. So I think we are pretty much in line with the original plan that was presented. Once again, historically, we have planned for transfers from the Revenue Stabilization Fund. 2024 is the first time that we actually made the transfers. So we keep an eye on that, and we are not going to make any transfers unless they're absolutely essential to support the operations. So once again, I think with these projections and the conservative budget that we are presenting, we do estimate that that would last us through 2027, perhaps into 2028. And we will continue to monitor it to make sure that it extends even further than that.
And Raj, any thought to using some of those dollars to increase our reserve, or is that not really, you're comfortable with the one?
I think at this point, we are pretty comfortable. Our efforts, my team's efforts, would be to continue making whatever the priority of the organization is. The first priority, obviously, has been the railcar funding, so we are extremely focused on that. We will have some options, even if the budget stabilization funds do come to an end at some point, whether in 2027 or 2028. What that rainy day fund, for lack of a better word, has done is given us a lot of opportunities in addressing capital needs over the years, move away from preventive maintenance dollars, and those are your capital project dollars that we can use to reimburse general fund for expenses for services that engineering staff may have provided towards capital projects. We have reduced that number from what used to be 15 to 25 million on an annual basis, and we're only drawing down $1 million essentially to close old grants. So we are going to have some options to mitigate the effect of the budget stabilization fund coming to an end. We'll just go back to doing what we were doing previously, ensuring that the safety and the reliability of the system is never impacted, and we'll go from there.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Any additional questions? Okay, well, I will also add that if there are additional questions to contact finance, between now and December, so that way when we move into December, we have all the information that we need. I'm going to motion to suspend the committee meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we will now suspend the committee meeting and open up for public hearing.
Good morning. My name is Kay Satula. I'm the Director of the Office of Management and Budget. Today, this is the first of two public hearings on the 2025 budget for the Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority. The 2025 budget is available for inspection in the Office of Management and Budget and on the authority's website and social media pages. Public notice of this hearing has been given by publication in the Cleveland Plain Dealer on October 23rd and October 27th, and the Cleveland Urban News on October 25th and October 27th, as well as by posting of notice in the first floor lobby of the authority's main office building and on the authority's website and social media pages. The proposed 2025 budget was presented to the Operational Planning and Infrastructure Committee of the RTA Board of Trustees on November 19th, 2024. A second presentation will be made to the Operational Planning and Infrastructure Committee on December 3rd. The proposed general fund budget estimates revenues at $364.5 million. The two largest sources of revenue are sales and use tax, budgeted at $267.5 million, and passenger fares at $32 million. Reimbursed expenditures include reimbursement for preventive maintenance, force account labor, fuel tax, and other miscellaneous reimbursements. For 2025, reimbursed expenditures are budgeted at $5 million, of which $1 million is for preventive maintenance. The formula funds normally used for preventive maintenance reimbursement will be used for unfunded or underfunded capital projects. Total expenditures are budgeted at $364.9 million, which includes $323.8 million for operating expenditures and $41.1 million for transfers to other funds. This is to support expenses and maintain the recommended fund balances for the bond retirement, insurance, supplemental pension, capital improvement, and reserve funds. The 2025 through 2029 Capital Improvement Plan was adopted by the Board of Trustees on May 21st, 2024. The CIP provides for the purchase, maintenance, and improvement of the authority's capital assets through a programmed allocation of financial resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Satula. Do we have any in-person comments specifically about the budget?
Chris Martin, City of Cleveland. I'm hearing managed decline in this budget. The reserve fund, a product of federal ARPA funding, continues to prop up the books of this agency, yet in a changing political environment, I do not believe that this board can count on future federal cash injections. So given that, just as you just heard, you've got a couple of years before you face a fiscal cliff. Meanwhile, you are in contract negotiations with ATU 268. While you are still short, last I heard, about 60 operators. It sounded like maybe you're close to finishing up negotiations, though. But I'm curious, what is this board doing to ensure that current operators get a fair contract? What will be in that contract to attract new operators to close the shortage? And of course, this board has promised us more frequent service at night and on weekends. This budget does not provide that. I have seen no plan to achieve that. Does this board intend to fulfill its promise to riders. Your customer value survey, your quarterly customer value survey, lists top 3 features that would increase ridership. Number 1, more frequent service. Number 2, more extensive service. Number 3, better on-time performance. This board can help the agency provide these by finding the funding to run more service with high-quality union operators. And then I just had a couple notes. I'm out of time.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Please be sure to send those notes to the GCRTA board email. We would love to see those. Do we have any additional in-person comments specifically about the budget? Teresa, any other over the phone?
Do we have anybody on the phone?
There are no calls.
And no emails have come in.
Okay, thank you so much. Do we have any additional comments from Ms.? Okay. We will now, I will have a motion to reconvene the committee meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We will now reconvene the committee meeting. You now have the floor, Director Satula. Oh, thank you. Do we have a motion to move the proposed capital budget, tax budget, operating budget to the operating budget, excuse me, to the full board?
So I think we have one more presentation.
Do we have one more
next
presentation?
month before we.
Okay, then we move it? Okay, so then we're just going to convene this operating planning committee. Okay, I'm going to motion to end the operational planning and infrastructure committee meeting. Do I have a second?
Correct.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The operational planning and infrastructure committee meeting is now convened at 10:30.
Morning again. I'm going to call to order RTA Organizational Service and Performance Monitoring Committee at 10:29. Roll call, please.
Mayor Biassiata.
Here.
Ms. Welch.
Here.
Ms. McPherson. Ms. Pachetti. Mr. Sleesman.
Here.
You have 3 committee members present. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Today we're going to go over our traction result reporting for the third quarter. Our general manager should be our first presenter.
All right, good morning again, still morning. I'd like to be able to go over and introduce, we have 2 folks here from TransPro. Aaron Bingaman is going to come up and start, I believe, the conversation on the quarterly performance review, and we've got James Rubin, Dr. James Rubin, alongside him for TransPro. As you recall, we come to you every quarter to go over not only the surveys for our customers, of which we get 1,200 or more every quarter. We did hit that target, but also to be able to go through what we have done over the past 3 months, and also where we stand as far as customer satisfaction, net promoter score, safety, security, a plethora of other things that are important to you and to us as well. So we'll go through that information, and I'm going to speed through some of this just in the interest of time. Again, this is just the agenda, so you understand what we're going to go through. You do, at the dais, have that information. You should have it printed for you. Everyone else, if you could follow along with the screen, it will take you through the process. Again, this is just the snapshot of where we are in the year so that you understand as well that we just don't review this here. We also have a monthly cadence that we go through internally to be able to review these. We call them tactics, and that is the departmental and divisional level. The scorecard that you see is the scorecard for the organization. That's the higher, bigger level viewpoint of what we're going through, but there are additional scorecards that the departments and the divisions actually own to be able to contribute to the higher level. So we're here in November, of course. And then also we have our scorecard at a very high level through, I call them buckets, that's just my colloquialism, but the 4 success outcomes on the left-hand side. Again, customer experience, community impact, employee investment, and financial health. I will say before I hand over the mic or the slides, to our colleagues here, pay attention to the points that are allocated. That's in the second column. Each one is not the same. So we have put a additional emphasis on the customer experience to the point of a lot of our public commenters today. We want to make sure that our customer experience is high. Our Net Promoter Score is high. Net Promoter is different than customer satisfaction. Again, Net Promoter Score is kind of like your Yelp review. How likely are you to recommend RTA to someone else? Customer satisfaction usually gets into the quality of the journey. And then community impact, again, that's our second highest ranking success outcome, and that really comes down to perception. We understand that a lot of folks in the community's confidence in us is based on their experience. So we want to make sure that we have a good perception of their journey as well as what their actual experience is. Perception becomes reality. So we do have folks weighing in on our system who may take it every now and then, as well as folks that take it every day. So all opinions matter, and it all contributes to the overall goal. It is not separated out. We look at them as a combined average. And then, of course, employee investment, of course, speaks for itself with the vacancy rates, the trainings, the journey mapping as far as your career, and looking at this as an employer of choice. And then we also have financial health, also pretty black and white. Are we able to fund ourselves to make sure that we can continue in a way, in a manner that actually serves you best? So at this point, I'm actually going to hand it over to Aaron to be able to kick us off.
Thank you, Ms. Terry, Mr. Chairman, Madam Chair. Great to be with you all. Aaron Bingaman, Managing Principal of TransPro. If you allow me, I want to take a step back and just make sure for some of our newer trustees, your new faces to me, you've probably been here a while, but just to level set what you're looking at. And it's interesting because most of the time we're doing these at the beginning of the meeting. We report the results, and here we are at the end. And it's interesting to me today because when you think about, if you just take a moment and reflect on all of the information that's been provided to us by the RTA team, whether it's about the budget, whether it's about service changes, whether it's about seat covers, community engagement activities, hiring, all of that work is what contributes to our ability to achieve the results we desire. When you look at this performance management system, I invite you to recognize that RTA has decided we're going to be great in 4 things. Our most important things, and there are lots of things we have to do that are very important, but our most important things are creating an amazing experience for our customers, demonstrating a significant impact to our community, making sure that we're building up the investment in our employees and they feel valued and welcome, and that we're sustaining the resources to have what we need to operate. This is a dashboard. And so when you think about a dashboard, it's giving our operators of buses, it's giving ourselves feedback and information about should my behavior be changing based on how we're performing. So what you see is a team working with agility quarter to quarter to move the needle, not only just to show up with a great score, sure, hitting the point total is fantastic, but it's about the impact that we're having for our customers, our community, our employees, and our financial resources. So for those that are relatively new to this performance management model, I wanted to share that and make sure we establish that baseline. One other thing of note that's important, I think, just for reflection, is that RTA is growing in its ownership of this system and process, and we are scaling back our investment of time, effort, and energy as the team competency has grown to build and drive the goal setting that is happening. This happens on an annual basis, so you should be soon seeing the goals established for 2025. These objective criteria are part of your CEO's performance evaluation process as well. So without further ado, let's dig into the results for the third quarter. Trending very well, maintaining a high level of excellence. This is a 100-point balanced scorecard. There are opportunities to overperform, as you can see, like we did in the second quarter. Of note, we moved the needle up in our employee investment success outcome and took a little bit of a slip in customer experience. We'll take a look at that and maintaining a high level at community impact and financial health. Looking at customer experience, we spend a lot of time talking about ridership and productivity. Absolutely important to make sure that we have customers and that we want to see our customer base grow. At the same time, we're also looking at how do we create that amazing experience. As our CEO just shared, the Net Promoter Score reflects our customers' willingness to recommend our service to friends and family. And overall customer satisfaction is how are people satisfied with our service. So as I pointed out, we've taken a slight dip here in our customer experience success outcome, and you can see modest declines in overall customer sat, also related to perception of safety, security, and impression of on-time performance. Why do we ask the question about in comparison to our actual on-time performance? By our standards, Doc and his team are putting out service 80% of the time it's on time, but 56% of our customers believe it's not on time. We probably don't have a service issue. We probably have a communication issue, and the teams now will work collaboratively over the next quarter or two to make sure folks have the information you saw in the service planning report, right? Investments in information and signage to help folks understand. So the activities are reflecting the opportunity to move the needle on what's important to our customers, and that will drive satisfaction and their willingness to recommend the service. In community impact, on the perceived value, just two staggering numbers here that I think are very, very important to reflect on, and those are the top two. That first of all, this is of a statistically valid sample of our community, the whole community. So probably only 3 to 5% of survey respondents actually use our service based on kind of the standard mode split in a community. 92% of folks surveyed in our service area recognize that RTA provides a benefit to the overall region. 59% say they receive a personal benefit from RTA. 3 to 5% of those sampled actually use the service, but 59% of our community says, I benefit personally from RTA. Maybe they have employees that are using that. Maybe they themselves have a family member or somebody that is using that and achieving independence. Don't fully know the reasons, but that's a really compelling case to make that while only 3 to 5% of our community uses the service, 59% see personal benefit in that. An employee investment, the team continues to drive the needle. I will tell you just anecdotally from industry perception, RTA is really leading the way in terms of successfully hiring, creating new pathways to identify talent, and the focus on retention and investment in supervisors and managers is beginning to have an impact on that. So we continue to see high performance there, actually saw growth. And then last but not least, financials. You just saw the depth and breadth of the care and concern that goes into this right now, really driving towards the increase in competitive grants to make sure we can sustain our rail car replacement and other service fundings. I'm going to invite Dr. James Rubin, if there are no questions on that quick overview, Dr. James Rubin to do a double click on some of the specific survey results for customer and community.
Good morning, everyone. The purpose of this, just to remind you, is that there's a lot of ways that we, as transit leaders, get information from our customers, right? Some of it comes in via email, some of it are tweets, some of it is the wonderful people who speak at our meetings and tell us exactly what's going on. This is the way that we make sure that the information that's flowing in is objective, that we're actually getting the perspective from the average customer out there by going out and surveying those customers and the community in a statistically significant sample, so that we do get these average numbers. We do see how these numbers are moving up and moving down. And before I dive into any of the results, there's just really, sometimes in our industry, things can get pretty complicated. Here, there's actually real easy, simple clarity. 3 words, if you allow me to include a hyphenated word as one word, right? On time, safe, and clean. Right? Across all of your services, that is what your customers are asking for. That's what your customers are saying is most important to them. That is really what's driving overall satisfaction and Net Promoter Score, right? On time, safe, and clean. And we'll see that exactly in these results as we look at them. So I want to take a few steps back to something Indy explained to you a few moments ago, the difference between the concepts of Net Promoter Score, which you're seeing here in blue, and overall satisfaction, which you're seeing in orange. Net Promoter Score comes from a question that customers are asked on a scale of 0 through 10. How likely are you to recommend service to friends, colleagues, family? In order to become a promoter, someone we would consider going out there and saying, yeah, try RTA, it's great, you've got to be a 9 or a 10 in that math. That's a really heavy burden, right? 6s, 7s, 8s don't get us to be promoters, right? We want people to be 9s and 10s, and that's how you really score well in the land of Net Promoter Score. On the other side of the coin is overall satisfaction, which you're seeing here in orange. That comes from a simple question on the survey where customers are asked on a scale of 1 through 5, how satisfied are you, right? Very dissatisfied, dissatisfied, neutral, satisfied, very satisfied. And the percentages you're seeing there are the percentages of customers who are satisfied and very satisfied. It's a lower burden, right? Getting folks to give you a 4 or a 5 out of 5 is easier than a 9 or a 10 out of 10. So what we typically see with these results, not just here at RTA, but across most agencies, is that overall satisfaction lives a little bit higher in scale than Net Promoter Score. And that's what you could see most of the time on this chart here that we're looking at for fixed route bus. We're charting fixed route bus Net Promoter Score, and we're charting net fixed route bus overall satisfaction. And our most recent results, which we just got from this past September, are showing a 64% overall satisfaction rate and a 31 Net Promoter Score for fixed route bus. And you'll notice something. That Net Promoter Score ticked up slightly from the last time we went out and surveyed, and the overall satisfaction ticked down slightly. So we looked at this with your directors, and your directors immediately identified a trend that we cannot validate with data. We do not have enough data to confirm this, but we do have enough evidence to perhaps ask a question or two on the next rounds of surveys so that we can get to the heart of this. And what we're seeing is that each year, at least for these past 2 years, there's been a noticeable drop in overall satisfaction leading into that September cycle. Right? Not so much a drop in Net Promoter Score, people likely to recommend, but generally speaking, customers are telling you they're less satisfied in that September survey. And your directors immediately thought this through and said, what's happening in the system in September that's not typically happening in other times of the year? So some thought here that it could be the return of students to the transit system in the fall after a summer in which they may not be on board the system, and your other customers experience in the presence of those students that could be driving what we're seeing is an 8 percentage point drop in overall satisfaction 2 years in a row in September for fixed route bus. And we're going to see a similar result in a few minutes when we look at bus rapid transit. So it's kind of consistent across the system. So fixed route bus, we're looking at a slight improvement in Net Promoter Score and a slight decrease in overall satisfaction to an interesting point where we're right kind of at the same in terms of scale. What are those customers saying are most important to them? And again, let's ignore the cost of a ride for a moment because that's fundamentally important to transit customers, right? They're paying for it. They have to budget. They have to pay for goods and food and all the other stuff. So they're always concerned with the ride. Look at the other three up here: personal safety and security, right way up there at 20%, on-time performance up there at 20%, and cleanliness at 12%, right? Again, on time, safe, and clean, the three most important attributes to fixed route bus customers from this past September. Not very different on bus rapid transit. Here we could see that Net Promoter Score was kind of flat, but you could still see that same September characteristic drop in overall satisfaction by about 8 percentage points coming into September there. Similar results. So we get a 65% overall satisfaction and a 40 Net Promoter Score for bus rapid transit. What are the BRT customers most concerned with? You see a very, very, very similar pattern here: personal safety and security, on-time performance, and cleanliness. And I'm not saying that customers aren't concerned with the other attributes that we have here, drivers and service info and frequency, but the top ones are the ones that come up the most, right? That's what we think is most driving customer experience and overall satisfaction compared to some of these other things. Rail looking a little bit different. Let me get my rail chart here. We're at a 68% satisfaction, but a slightly lower 12 net promoter score. And you could see, unlike our two bus services, rail took a dip in net promoter score coming into this recent cycle, and a sort of corresponding slight dip in overall satisfaction. Rail customers are saying personal security, on-time performance, and cleanliness. And I just wanted to say, I thought the presentation about the seat cleaning was really fantastic. I myself have done work in the past out in the Bay Area with BART, and BART system was designed with big, super cushy seats, and was one of the most complained items amongst their customers, and they even brought in environmental scientists to swab those seats, and we don't want to go into those details because I don't want to ruin your lunch. But let's just say not good stuff in there. So really good to see. When customers encounter dirty seats, it absolutely impacts their experience. They don't want to sit there, and they do want to sit, and they feel like the vehicle is less clean and a little bit out of control. And that's exactly what we hear from customers around the country. So great, kudos to you working on one of those three things I just said, which was cleanliness. Here we see a completely different story around paratransit. We can see the stellar results we get time in and time out when you all go out and ask your paratransit customers what they think of the service. You can see that looks flat. I don't mean by saying flat that that's a negative. It's a 92% satisfaction rate and a 75 net promoter score, which is exceptionally high even for paratransit. I remind folks that paratransit customers typically are vocal, they're organized, they express their opinions. That's great. But they also tend to be a little bit more satisfied with service than a fixed route bus customer. Even though they're more vocal and tell you what they think of the service a little bit more, they like it a little bit more. So you can see amongst those customers, personal safety and security is number one, cleanliness and on-time performance 2 and 3. But again, let's remind ourselves that the personal safety and security here for a paratransit customer is a little bit different. Right? It's not the same thing as a person waiting on the corner for a bus and a person getting on board a bus and maybe seeing a group of unruly high schoolers on their way to school. It's a different experience. They're concerned a little bit more for their actual safety and getting to the location on board the vehicle. We put this all together to give you an agency net promoter score and an agency overall satisfaction. Sometimes I'm a little reluctant to show this to agencies because really what reigns supreme here is the largest ridership that you have, right? So the results here are really driven by 70% fixed route bus, and your stellar results in paratransit kind of get washed away a little bit in this agency chart because so many more riders in your system are fixed route bus and rail that they are really driving these net promoter score and overall satisfaction. So for the agency, we're at a 66% overall satisfaction and a 29 on the net promoter score. We have one more set of data to go over. We're not going to go into too much detail here, but we also you also conduct twice a year another survey. It's called a community impact survey. This is the survey where folks throughout the Cleveland community are asked their perception of the agency and of transit. And I'll remind you, these are not necessarily transit users. Some of them are. But the idea here is to get perceptions from the entire community, not just from transit customers. So you can see here, the line on the bottom, the blue, this is actually the line that just traces the percent of respondents who are telling you that they actually use RTA service. So you can see that track down in the most recent survey. I believe it's down at close to like 18% regionally. The two other important numbers that we really want to look at is the percent of respondents who told us that they find value for the community and the percent of respondents who told us they find value for them personally. Personally is that lower line at orange, and it's up to 59%, a slight tick up about 2 to 3 percentage points from the last time the survey was conducted. And 92%, Erin mentioned this a few moments ago, phenomenal number when you think about it, 92% of the community, more than 9 out of 10 people who responded to the survey when asked, does RTA bring value to the community, said yes. Right, so that's a tremendous achievement, and it's been high for several cycles. So I don't want to take away. I don't want to mean like it just improved dramatically. Good results. Your community really reflecting the work and the importance of the agency and how important it is, not just to them but to the community. What do the community members cite as the things that are most important to them as far as RTA is concerned? The environmental impact is number one. Impact on special mobility needs and low-income folks, that's 2. Access to medical, recreation, and education, 3. Affordability is 4, and you could probably argue that there's some synergy between 2 and 4 here, but we keep them separate. And road safety, congestion management, and pollution reduction, 11%, so that's the 5th. Those are the 5 most important things cited on the community survey by community members that the value the agency is bringing to the community. And with that, we can address any questions you have on the scorecard, on the community survey, or on the customer survey.
Any questions or comments from the board? Mayor, floor is yours.
Just one, and I know I think we've changed how we do the surveys, but I'm just curious, when we started this process, there was a lot of questions about how often can is there fatigue, survey fatigue? Have we seen any of that? I don't know how you measure that, but have we seen any of that?
I haven't heard direct word from the folks who are actually going out there and doing the surveying that we're seeing that, right? I mean, theoretically, what we're doing on board vehicles is stopping every 4th customer and asking them the question. So if we're doing every 4th, there's enough folks out there that we should be able to do this quarterly without seeing too much fatigue. There's also something that counters that fatigue, right? Which is that many transit customers aren't often asked their opinion about service and what they think. And having that experience is really positive for them. So there are plenty of them that I've heard don't mind being asked that again the next quarter to give you their opinion again. And there's nothing wrong with that. We're not trying to create a panel. That's a different statistical approach, of course. Right. But I think we still are getting good statistically valid results on a quarterly basis.
Yeah, thanks.
Any further comments?
Sorry, just to add, it's a standard of practice that the better practice in the industry is the customer survey. Quarterly, it's giving you real-time information that your team's able to respond to. I think we find that customers value when their voice is heard and something's done about it, which RTA is doing. It has a positive impact. Sorry.
I just had a comment that go back to these are perceptions. You can clean a bus as much as you want. If people don't perceive it as clean, they're going to say that. And so for the on time, you alluded to it already, but the one thing that really helps, or not the one thing, but a thing that really helps at stations and stops, especially frequent stops, are those real-time arrival signs that really help with perception of how long you're waiting. And I can tell you that from experience. When you know that the thing's coming, you're like, all right, cool. Whereas if it's the uncertainty causes a perception of like, what the heck is going on here? So the more we can get those out, the better. Thanks for the ones that we have, and I appreciate it.
Anyone else?
Just a quick comment, if I can. I'll be very fast.
Oh, I'll allow it.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. Just to be able to say, I appreciate the explanation. We're very proud of the results. I know that we are nearing the end of the year, but what you are seeing is always a quarter in arrears. So just keep that in mind as well. The data have one more quarter to go. One thing I just wanted to mention as well on the survey front, and I'm kind of looking at George and Wendy as I say this for the HR and training, we also have our employee internal survey that we handle. That's not explained to you. You saw the external survey. But we also have an internal survey. Is it once a year? Twice? Once? Once. To the survey fatigue question that you asked, Mayor Weiss, we definitely don't want to get people kind of tired of answering and then not answer at all. So we do kind of counterbalance that with a one time a year and really make it robust. We actually have had great input from our ODOT oversight, our SSO, which is our state safety oversight, to be able to start to add in some safety questions to that as well so that we can start to kind of widen the net, so to speak, to be able to make sure that we're not missing anything on the safety side, externally as well as internally. So we'll look at that for the next go round. We did get, and George and Wendy, you may have to keep me honest here, over 2,000 responses, I think it was, for the internal survey. And you remember, we're close to 2,400 employees. So that's a huge, Wendy, you have the exact number like Melinda did?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought
so. It's 47%.
There you go.
And it was 2,100 written responses.
Thank you. So we're big on the numbers, making sure, keeping me honest on the actual responses, which is a big improvement versus where we were this time a couple years ago. Also, one thing I wanted to make sure you were aware of is that we will be announcing within the next, probably in December meeting is our goal, who will be leading the internal customer experience and performance management team. We are working to stand that up. If you recall, a few months back, I mentioned that we were going to be interviewing for that. We have completed or are in completion of that process, so we'll be bringing that information not only to the board but to our internal staff to be kind of unveiling the leadership for that team. Keep in mind that this will be a small but mighty team that will probably be stood up within the next 6 months, hopefully to be completed. I envision that to be a team of 3 or 4 individuals, and we'll figure out the hierarchy and all of that. They will be reporting into me directly to make sure that they have that internal push, right, to be able to say how are we doing with our statistics, and also working alongside TransPro. As Aaron and James mentioned, they are starting to step back a little bit. So hopefully within the next month or so, as I look at procurement and I look at all of the DGMs, we're working through that as well to make sure that we can bring a contract to be able to reflect the relationship over the next year or two so that we can start to transition out some of that work and also be able to figure out what the next step is with our relationship with TransPro as we start to grow. So all that being said, stay tuned. We'll bring good information to you over the next month or so as we lead into 2025. So it's looking like a good year. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. I move to adjourn at 10:58. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Meeting's adjourned.